Hello there and welcome to World News Program, streaming to you live on All 24 News. I'm your host, Kim Zachary, and up next are the top stories. Despite the UN Security Council's call for a ceasefire in Gaza, the occupation persists in committing more massacres against Palestinians. 40 Palestinians were killed in just one day, with many more injured in Zionist attacks on the Nusayrat and Zawaida camps. Algerian president urges more support for Palestinians at Gaza conference, stressing action against occupation amid growing famine and child malnutrition. That's next. Also coming up, Hamas indicates willingness for negotiations, and the Palestinian presidency views Security Council resolution crucial for halting the genocide, while the Arab League sees it as overdue accountability for international community. Also ahead, Algeria achieves diplomatic win, elected to UNESCO's Intangible Cultural Heritage Committee, pledges support for safeguarding global cultural heritage, particularly in Africa. Stay tuned for the details right after the break. Hello again and welcome to the details. First off in our topical news, Zionist forces commit 4 new massacres in Gaza, killing 40 and injuring 120 within just 24 hours. The death toll rises to 37,124 martyrs and 84,832 wounded since October 7th. 12 Palestinians were killed in Tuesday bombings, including 8 from one family in Gaza City's Al-Darraj neighborhood. 2 farmers in Rafah and 2 children in Zawaida. Several casualties were also reported in Zionist bombing west of a Nusayrat camp. Mahmoud and Fatima's story adds to the many sad stories of Gaza. Like many Palestinians, they couldn't perform Hajj or the Muslim pilgrimage this season due to the Rafah crossing closure by the occupation. More on the story with Sofian Kanturi.
In the aftermath of their home's destruction, a married couple stands amid the rubble, mourning the shattered dreams they have nurtured over the years, shattered by the actions of the occupying forces. However, the cancellation of their pilgrimage this year adds another layer of despair.
Unfortunately, we lost our house. As you can see, there is destruction and devastation. We need at least $20,000 to restore things to the way they were. And then came the closure of the border, and we can't go to Hajj. We can't go to it.
For 20 years, this couple diligently entered the Hajj lottery, their anticipation mounting each year. Yet when the opportunity finally arose, they found themselves barred from crossing the Rafah border due to the Zionist aggression.
Every year, we wait to go to Hajj and it doesn't happen. I sold my jewelry and all that is my possession because we had a debt due to the house that we built. We could not otherwise register. After our names came through, the war happened and all our hope was lost.
Decades of occupation have crushed Palestinians' aspirations, yet hope persists, fueling their resilience in the face of adversity. Despite tightening grip of hardship and blockade, dreams endure, serving as beacon of perseverance amidst the darkness of oppression.
In other topical news, the United Nations revealed the suspension of World Food Programme operations to transport aid to Gaza via the American floating dock. Stéphane Dujarric, the UN Secretary General spokesman, cited security concerns following the Zionist occupation's use of the dock in the Nusayrat massacre. Operations are paused pending security assessments with hopes to resume soon.
The World Food Program colleagues tell us that we are temporarily pausing operations at the floating dock until a thorough assessment of the security situation is conducted to ensure the safety of our staff and our partners. What's driving UN security concerns is that we continue to try to deliver aid in an active war zone. That's what drives our security concerns. And there are different issues that rise, that come up to the fore on a regular basis. We deal with them. We constantly reassess our security position, constantly reassess our operations to ensure that our own staff is safe, and just as importantly, those people who are trying to get aid are safe as well.
And according to the UNICEF, hunger-related deaths are evident due to hindered humanitarian aid entry. And over 80% of Gaza's children face severe food shortages. More details with Islam Said now.
Children in Gaza suffer from severe malnutrition as displaced mothers desperately search for food and medicine for their kids. Resources are depleted amid ongoing Zionist attacks on the Strip for the 8th consecutive month. Displaced families stand helpless as their children endure severe malnutrition due to the mass starvation policy imposed by the Zionist government.
My son suffered from malnutrition during the war due to the scarcity of food, water, and economic hardships we are facing. We are experiencing a severe shortage in Gaza, especially in the north. There is no healthy food or clean water available. This war has devastated our lives and turned them upside down. There is no food, no water, only siege and destruction. Our homes are destroyed, and there is no longer any life.
Before the war, Gaza had a malnutrition rate of 0.8%. Now the Strip is on the verge of famine, as many reports indicate that people are dying from malnutrition-related diseases.
The malnutrition rate was 0.8%. The situation has radically changed in the last 7 months. Therefore, we were forced to start implementing prevention and treatment interventions for malnutrition, primarily focused on children under 5 years old and breastfeeding and pregnant women who are more exposed to the risk of malnutrition.
The situation worsens as the non-governmental organization Action Against Hunger warns that uncollected waste in Gaza heightens summer disease outbreaks, compounding residents' hardships from food shortages and limited services.
The amount of solid waste throughout the Strip is causing multiple hygiene and sanitation problems. We fear that diseases we have never seen in the Strip will appear and affect the entire population, especially with the summer approaching when temperatures will rise. So this is indeed one of the most critical priorities right now.
The Zionist aggression in Gaza has led to severe malnutrition among children. Blockades and bombings directly impact them and hinder humanitarian aid, worsening their suffering and aggravating the crisis.
Algerian President Abdelmadjid Tebboune called on Tuesday for intensifying efforts and mobilizing international support to stand by the wounded Palestinian people. In a speech read on his behalf by Algerian Health Minister Abdelhak Saihi during a high-level conference on the humanitarian situation in Gaza, hosted by the Jordanian capital Amman, Algerian President Abdelmadjid Tebboune reaffirmed Algeria's unwavering support for the Palestinian cause. President Tebboune hopes the conference outcomes will offer practical solutions to ease Gaza's humanitarian crisis and holds the Zionist occupation accountable for its actions. He also condemns the international community's inaction and announces Algeria's advance payment of its financial contribution to Palestine to help alleviate Palestinian suffering.
From our position as permanent member of the UN and a Human Rights Council, Algeria has worked on introducing resolutions for a ceasefire and facilitating the entry of aid and pushing towards the respect of international resolutions. Algeria has also sent humanitarian aids in coordination with the brotherly country Egypt, as it has provided help for the UNRWA. Thus, we are working on easing the struggle of our brotherly people in the state of Palestine.
Algeria's UN representative Ammar Ben Jama acknowledged the imperfection of the American draft resolution but deemed it a glimmer of hope for Palestinians. He stated Algeria's support for the resolution to pave the way for a lasting ceasefire in Gaza and to foster diplomatic efforts for ending Zionist aggression against the Palestinians. Ambassador Ammar bin Jama emphasized Algeria's close collaboration with Palestinians and mediators to secure an immediate Gaza ceasefire.
We voted in favor of the draft resolution submitted by the United States because we believe it can represent a step toward an immediate and lasting ceasefire. And I would like to extend our gratitude to the US delegation, especially Ambassador Linda Thomas-Greenfield, for their diligent efforts and for addressing some of our concerns in the final text. Algeria engaged during the negotiation process in good faith, working closely with Palestinian and mediators to achieve a resolution that ensure an immediate ceasefire and hopefully will have a tangible impact on the ground.
UN Ambassador Ammar bin Jama underscored the international community's duty to rebuild Gaza, affirming Algeria's commitment to contribute to the reconstruction efforts.
Given the unprecedented level of destruction in Gaza, which will take decades to clear, the international community, through this resolution, reaffirms its commitment to the Palestinian people and for the reconstruction of the Gaza Strip.
Still with the draft resolution, this said the resolution calls for an immediate ceasefire, prisoner exchange, and Palestinian return to Gaza in Phase 1. Phase 2 demands a permanent end to war with a full withdrawal of occupation forces. And Phase 3 focuses on Gaza's reconstruction. Here's Islam Said again.
With the support of 14 members, the United Nations Security Council adopted a ceasefire resolution in the Gaza Strip, urging all parties involved to fully implement its provisions without delay or conditions.
The fighting could stop.
The American plan, now mandated for on-the-ground implementation by the Security Council, specifies the following during its initial 42-day phase.
Temporary cessation of military operations by both sides, release of a number of prisoners, and repatriation of the remains of those who have died, withdrawal of Israeli forces from population areas in Gaza, return of Palestinian civilians to their homes and neighborhoods in all areas, safe and effective distribution of humanitarian aid on a wide scale.
If Hamas and the Zionist entity make progress in indirect talks within 6 weeks, the resolution stipulates moving to the second phase of its provisions, which include
permanent cessation of hostilities, declaration of a permanent ceasefire, activation of a prisoner exchange deal, release of all male detainees in exchange for a number of Palestinian prisoners held in Israeli jails and detention centers, full withdrawal of Zionist forces from the Gaza Strip.
The third and final phase includes key provisions, such as
start of Gaza reconstruction plan lasting 3 to 5 years, covering homes, civil structures, and infrastructure, opening the border crossings to facilitate the movement of people and goods, repatriation of the remains of the deceased prisoners, repatriation of the remains of deceased prisoners still in the Strip to the Zionist entity.
The Security Council resolution also reaffirmed its steadfast commitment to the two-state solution within recognized and secure borders, in accordance with the international law and relevant United Nations resolutions. It emphasized the importance of unifying the Gaza Strip with the West Bank under the Palestinian Authority.
The Islamic resistance movement Hamas welcomed the Security Council resolution. In a statement, the movement expressed readiness to cooperate with mediators to enter into indirect negotiations on implementing principles that are consistent with the demands of the Palestinian people and their resistance. Meanwhile, U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken described on Tuesday the position of the Hamas movement, which supports the UN Security Council resolution, as a hopeful gesture. Blinken, in statements he made before the start of the Emergency Humanitarian Response Conference for Gaza, hosted by Jordan, made it clear the talks on post-ceasefire plans in Gaza will continue over the next 2 days.
It was hopeful, but it's not dispositive. What is dispositive, at least what's so far been dispositive one way or another, is the word coming from Gaza and from the Hamas leadership in Gaza. That's what counts, and that's what we don't have yet. And that's why I say we're waiting to see. Everyone has said yes, except for Hamas. And if Hamas doesn't say yes, then this is clearly on them.
And in a different reaction, the Palestinian presidency sees the UN Security Council ceasefire resolution as a positive step towards ending the ongoing extermination war in Gaza. It urges all parties to fulfill their responsibilities in implementing the resolution, aligning with their demands for an immediate halt to Zionist aggression, full withdrawal of occupation forces, aid entry, and prevention of displacement, emphasizing Gaza's integral part of Palestine. The Palestinian presidency extends gratitude to Algeria and the Arab representative in the UN Security Council for ensuring the resolution aligns with Palestinian national goals. It highlights the Security Council's reaffirmation of the two-state solution vision, emphasizing the need for earnest efforts to implement a political solution leading to ending the occupation and establishing an independent Palestinian state.
The Security Council's resolution reaffirms its strong commitment to the two-state solution as outlined in international law and relevant United Nations resolutions. This underscores the need for substantial efforts toward implementing a political resolution that concludes the occupation and establishes an independent Palestinian state in compliance with international law and legitimate resolutions.
To other reactions now, the Arab League welcomes the UN Security Council's adoption of the UN's drafted resolution for a Gaza ceasefire, though Secretary General Ahmed Abul Ghait criticizes the delay in taking action. He emphasizes the urgency of halting the Zionist aggression. Meanwhile, the Organization of Islamic Cooperation views the resolution as a crucial step in ending the genocide in Gaza and calls for immediate implementation through concerted efforts and shared responsibilities. To other stories around News Bulletin, European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen announced that the issue of utilizing frozen Russian assets will be on the agenda for the upcoming Group of 7 G7 leaders meeting in Italy. Speaking at a conference in Berlin focused on supporting Ukraine's reconstruction efforts, von der Leyen stated that the G7 will intensify efforts to prevent frozen Russian assets from returning to Russia and instead use them to finance Ukraine.
Around 1.5 billion euros from the windfall profits will become available in July. 90% of these funds will go to defense, 10% to reconstruction, and later this week at the G7 summit, we will further discuss how Ukraine can benefit even quicker and even more from the proceeds of the immobilized Russian assets.
NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg called on Russia to halt its unjustified troop buildup around Ukraine. Foreign ministers from Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, the United States, and Britain issued a joint statement describing the movement of Russian forces as threatening and destabilizing.
Is, of course, the most urgent task is, of course, to ensure that we provide the support to Ukraine for as long as it takes. And therefore, I expect NATO allies to agree to have NATO in the lead in providing security assistance training for Ukraine, and also to agree a long-term financial commitment to Ukraine, because NATO allies are providing 99% of the military support to Ukraine already. I expect that NATO will take the lead in coordinating the provision of equipment and training, and that allies will make a financial commitment to support Ukraine for as long as it takes.
And in a different development in Africa this time, International Criminal Court prosecutor Karim Khan launched urgent investigation into possible crimes in El Fasher and surrounding areas in Sudan, urging witnesses and partners to provide evidence.
But in addition, I am extremely concerned about allegations of widespread international crimes being committed in El Fasher and its surrounding areas as I speak. As an office, we are investigating these crimes with urgency. We have deployed teams on the ground in Chad, in Port Sudan, and in other locations in the region to gather evidence and information to advance our investigations.
Still in Africa, but back to Algeria, where the country was unanimously elected to UNESCO's Intangible Cultural Heritage Committee for 4 years, signaling a diplomatic victory and bolstering its global presence in cultural preservation, notably in Africa. Here's Osama Ayadi now.
Algeria was unanimously elected as a member of the Intangible Cultural Heritage Committee for the 2024-2028 term on behalf of the Arab Group. The membership culminates the 10th General Assembly of the states parties to the Convention of the Safeguarding of the Intangible Cultural Heritage held at UNESCO headquarters in Paris on June 11, 2024.
Today, Algeria was elected to membership in the Intergovernmental Committee for the Safeguarding of the Intangible Cultural Heritage for a period of 4 years from 2024 to 2028. This comes within the framework of revitalizing Algerian diplomacy and implementation of the high instructions of the President of the Republic, Abdelmajid Tebboune. In this context, Algeria has launched a dynamic campaign during the past months through the permanent delegation to UNESCO and the Algerian diplomatic corps around the world. This what allowed us to mobilize the necessary support to elect our country to this body.
This international recognition highlights the global community's confidence in Algeria and underlines the seriousness of its national policies in preserving, developing, and promoting its rich intangible cultural heritage. It is also a testament to its dedicated efforts in the field, as it signifies its leadership on the global stage. The country's active participation in protecting its intangible cultural heritage within UNESCO has led to numerous elements and expressions being inscribed on the UNESCO list.
This election will allow strengthening Algeria's contribution to the protection of intangible cultural heritage throughout the world, especially in Africa, as well as defending our country's interests before UNESCO, especially with regard to the elements that we presented in the representative list.
Algeria's election to the committee took place within the framework of the 10th General Assembly of States Parties to the Convention of the Safeguarding of the Intangible Cultural Heritage. During this assembly, members of the Intergovernmental Committee for the Safeguarding of the Intangible Cultural Heritage for the next 4 years were also elected. The Committee on Intangible Cultural Heritage was established in 2004 following the adoption of the International Convention for the Safeguarding of the Intangible Cultural Heritage in October of the same year.
Time to catch up on more stories making headlines around the globe in the News in Brief.
Russia accused Western countries of pushing Moscow towards revising its nuclear doctrine, citing readiness to use tactical nuclear weapons to deter Western threats. Russian Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Ryabkov stated that Western actions are prompting Russia to consider amendments to its nuclear deterrence policies without specifying details.
Algeria maintained its top spot on the list of the largest gas suppliers to Spain last May for the 6th month in a row, ahead of Russia and the United States of America. Data from the Spanish company Gas showed that Algeria's market share had risen to more than 36%.
Malawi's President Lazarus Chakwera announced on Tuesday the death of his deputy after a plane carrying him and 9 others crashed. The plane carrying Vice President Solus Silima and 9 others disappeared from radar screens on Monday. It attempted to land at Mzuzu airport after departing from Lilongwe but failed due to poor visibility and bad weather.
The Algerian national team returned Monday with a difficult and valuable victory with a score of 2-1 against its Ugandan host in the 4th round of the 7th group of the 2026 World Cup qualifiers. The team's performance in the 2 last matches revealed that great challenges await coach Vladimir Petkovic starting from next September.
Well, that's the end of our news. Thank you for tuning in to our channel. Until next time, bye-bye.